Show roster review number one. We are doing Hergott's team in his heavily acronymed league. I have no idea what it stands for. However, it is a very interesting format, a little different in that it's a 12 by 11 start two tight end super flex, and it also has a half point per carry. Now, I'm here with Matt English. We're doing our first roster review in the birdhouse. Hergott gets his opportunity as one of our Patreon members to take advantage of this feature that we're offering right now for you. If you join the Patreon, you'll get a free roster review from any team that you'd like. So, Matt, I'm going to welcome you into the building today. How are you doing today?
Not too bad, man. Glad to be back in the birdhouse, new format, doing a roster review. Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah.
First and
All
foremost.
right. So Hergott, this team, he punted year one and grabbed the 101. He also landed the champs first round pick. So he's got back to back picks there at the 112 and 201. And he also loaded up for the 26 draft in the startup. He got a number of people's first rounders, and so he's sitting on four firsts in the 26 draft. So, looking at the squad and taking the format into account, what are your initial thoughts here, Matt? What did you, after hearing the format, what was your initial take on the roster and picks?
Well, I know we're in the off season and we're stuffing the rosters with potential guys that could break out or do something, right? But the first thing, hearing half a point per carry, and looking at the running backs, got to clean up that running back room, and then also having to start two tight ends. There's one startable tight end there that needs to be addressed. And based on the picks that we have here for this year, it's going to be hard to put this team into any sort of contention right away. Um, there are some ideas to kind of help improve this roster to get into 26 where some damage can be done. So I'm sure we're going to take a look at that. But my first assessment is, man, we've got to get ourselves a running back and a tight end immediately.
Yeah. I mean, he's not ready to contend for this year, not with some of the other squads in this league. Looking at them, you've got one dude who has absolutely no picks in 25. You've got I don't know, two or three other teams at least that have nothing but third and fourth round picks. Um, and that's where in this kind of format, I mean, the running back well might even be dry by the third round. So yeah, he's got to look for the 26th draft as his main focus. There's a dude, the top team here, Ron Burgundy up here. I'll click on his team to show you folks at home quickly. Ron Burgundy here, he's loaded up with six first rounders in the 2025 draft. So
That's
he's looking
insane.
at, yeah, this guy's got the 102 and then five straight first round picks from 105 through 109. So he's obviously going to be dominating this draft here. So
Mhm.
that's what makes it pretty tough to try and swing something where he could, maybe trade the 26 firsts to get assets to contend this year. So that's not really a realistic option. But that doesn't mean that he can't dominate the 26 draft, just like this guy is looking to do in this year's draft. Um, Now, will the running backs be as heavily talented as the 25 draft? Probably not, but there are a bunch of good running backs in next year's class, so that doesn't mean that they aren't going to be there. I mean, even in a draft like last year, there ended up being a few running backs that did well, but there definitely is more talent in the 26 draft at running back than there was last year. Last year it was you had to get lucky on Bucky Irving and Tyron Tracy, really. Um,
Yep.
there's going to be more first and second round rookie picks at running back next year. So, and even if that doesn't work, he can trade for running backs too with those picks. So,
Right.
point being is I think he needs to get his focus set on the 26 draft as he's already done. Keep working that angle, and in order to do so, I'd look at a couple of options to maybe get out of for right now. Like Xavier Worthy is an option to try and get out of. I don't love Xavier Worthy with Rishi Rice coming back into the fold going forward, like into the 26 season. So right now could be the point where Xavier Worthy is maybe at his highest value
That's fair.
at at a first round value, right? Like he
Mhm.
could trade Xavier Worthy for a 26 first right now. Now I don't know what the wide receiver market is here with a half point per carry. I got to think that everybody wants running backs, so I don't know if you can get a swing a first for Xavier Worthy. You might have to throw, a third on top of it, but um, just want to
It's
see in the chat here. We've
Yeah,
got
it's going to be tough sledding on that running back room, especially with the points per carry. Golly, man, it's going to take quite a bit to move people off of those good running backs. So it's almost, and my thought is like, I'm going to have to draft this guy. I'm going to have to draft my running back as opposed to
right.
trying to trade for it. Um, I mean, well, let's take a look at what we could use with his current draft capital to see how we can kind of offset this. I mean, we're not doing anything for this year competition wise, so let's look to set for the future and get in some pieces that'll be ready to roll uh, when we're ready to do what Ron Burgundy's about to do, right? So
Right.
that 101 carries a big price tag, right? Because according to everybody, it's Aston Genty and then everyone else. So my first inclination would be to split that 101 and what that's going to look like based on one team controlling 6 picks in the first round.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it's going to be tough to deal with that guy that has the 6 picks. He's got them for a reason. Not that it can't be done, but I think if we looked at a couple of the other teams, maybe there's something we can do, right? I I said we needed like running back and a tight end, right? Is that are we in agreement on that one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, well, let's see here. What did we figure out here? There's a guy in the league. Pat, is it Pats for Life that owns the 104?
Yeah. Let me bring his team up here. Alan asks a question from the chat. In situations like this, knowing he's not going to contend this year, um, basically, I've tried to make mid-season trades for injured players to improve my draft pick. Would you recommend doing something like that? Yeah, absolutely. This year, and even right now, you could trade for some players that are injured or that we know like have torn ACLs and are going to be out for a
Yeah.
while. I mean, he already has Jonathan Brooks.
Mhm.
Um, he has Deshaun Watson, who's not going to score any points this year, and who knows in the future even if he'll
Right.
score any points. Um, but yeah, that's a definite way to do it. As soon as some guys get hurt, then he can look to trade his performing veterans like a Jalen Warren, like a Chris Olave, even Lad McConkey. I don't know that I want to trade McConkey. I'm not going to trade him right now because he's probably got enough or a low enough point total that he's going to be contending for the 101 and 26 right now. But yeah, let's scroll down here. I'm going to bring up the two main picks that are available then, with that one dude having five straight picks. He's got the 102, 105, 106, 107, 108, and 109. That means that the 103 and 104 are available. So let's look at the guys that have those picks, and that would be Pats for life here. This is one team. So this guy has the 104 and his 26 first, so I would be looking to go after those two picks and maybe a little juice on top of that for the 101. That's what I would be going after.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So the 104 is good because you're still getting that. You can get yourself a top 3, 4 running back if that's what's going to dominate in this draft. Um,
Yep.
and looking around at this roster here, I mean, you could ask for several things if you wanted to. I look at his tight ends because he's got what is now going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 starting tight ends that we know of, right?
Right.
Based on some of the free agents' activity.
Yeah, with Brenton Strange, as of now, he's the starting tight end in Jacksonville. We'll
Right.
see if that holds. I mean, even if they draft a rookie, I could see Strange being the starter out of the
Oh,
gate.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, he flashed last year when Evan Ingram was out, showing that he was a good target for Trevor Lawrence, especially in the red zone. So he's got 4 starting tight ends. Maybe you ask for the 104, the 26 first, and one of the tight ends. Um, there's plenty of receivers here. If you wanted to add a receiver, I'm not sure that's what you would want to do. Could. Um,
he could have Tank Dell thrown in. That's for sure. There's a perfect body to
yeah,
have thrown
if you're
in.
trying to sink your points, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so that's what I'd be looking to do is to add maybe a tight end, the Tank Dell call there, and then the 104 and the 26 first. And now
I
you
would
would
look
yeah,
at he has
good.
he has Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker is not this team, but Hergott has Jalen Coker. That's
Correct.
somebody he could throw him back to get someone like Tank Dell and even another later pick. So because Coker isn't
Yeah.
somebody I'm looking at as a long term option, he's somebody who I think he has a little value right now, but now's the time to get out on him before Carolina goes ahead and drafts a wide receiver maybe early in the second round, right? And kind of eats away at Coker's possible production. Um,
Yeah. Well, you got to think about those things. I mean, they offered Chris Godwin a ton of money, and he
right.
didn't come. So they're looking to bring in another pass
Yes.
catcher for Bryce Young.
Yeah. And who knows what that means? I mean, they could pull off a deal for T. Higgins or something. I mean, I don't think
Mhm.
Higgins is going anywhere now, but yes, the thought is there for Carolina that they need a bigger time wide receiver, and they're picking at what is it? I think pick 8. So if Tet doesn't go to New England at 4, Carolina's definitely an option there for Tet to go to.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think Coker's a guy I want to get out on. So I would throw in Coker with the 101 and try to get the 104 here. And at this guy's 26 first, along with Tank Dell, who's going to score 0 points this upcoming
Most
year,
of
or
next year, if not all. Yeah.
very little at least, if he does make it back somehow.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
he's Allen adds in from the chat. Najee could be a pickup if possible. Then try to flip him early in the season. I foresee his value spiking. Sure, if you could get Najee, yeah, um, because yeah, you could flip him early on, and so he
mhm.
avoids him getting him a bunch of points.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be hard to trade running backs in this format, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well,
let's look at the other squad.
Doggertown
This
too. Look
guy,
at Dogger. Yeah. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say look at Doggertown too, because I think that's the 103 pick.
Yes.
Um, and then that
So
I'm
Dodger
looking up.
Town is down here.
Oh, it's Dodger. Called him Dogger. All right.
Okay. Here's Dodger Town's squad, who has the 103 and his own 26 first.
Hmm. All right.
So Dodger Town is sitting on Hawkinson, Kraft, and Andrews at tight end. Don't know that he wants to trade one of those. He might like having the three tight ends, but regardless, he could definitely use Ashton Genty. I think that he's looking at his quarterback room. He's got a team, with Matthew Stafford in there. He's probably looking to contend, possibly this year. His running back room isn't great, but he's got enough picks there in the second round to grab some running backs. And again, he's got the three tight ends, so he has flexibility with the tight ends to try and trade one there to maybe get a running back. But anyway, from Hergott's perspective, he's got to try and go after this guy's 103 and 26 first, plus something. So again, here, first check if he's got anybody that is, out for the season or got a big injury. I don't really see anybody on this squad with that profile, but
No.
I don't know. What would you think on top of the 103 and 26 first? What would you be looking at trying to get from this guy?
Man, that's tough. That's really tough, man. The tight ends. I mean, if you could get them off of one, I would maybe try to grab one. I
Yeah,
still
I would
like Taji
probably try and
Spears.
have him throw in Tucker Craft, I guess,
Yeah,
is what I would look at.
yeah. That I like Taji Spears still, so that might be an ad that you can get away with clean without having to put a lot extra into it outside of the 101.
Yeah.
Um, this one's I think a little bit tougher to deal with, just because of where they have their value allocated. More so on their quarterbacks and top end receivers. It's just not as much
Hmm.
to try and pick and choose from. So
Right.
similar situation as our as Hergott's in at the moment. So
Yeah, I think I would be looking at 103, 26 first, and Tucker Craft. Try and get those three main pieces from this guy, but try with Pats for life first. Even though it's the 104 pick, I kind of like what he has to offer. Um, Maybe a little better in that he can get the 104, the 26 first, Tank Dell, and then maybe Hergott can get a second and third rounder thrown in as well on top
mhm.
of Tank Dell. Because he doesn't really need to go after the tight end this year. He's
Right,
fine. And on top of that, Hergott has George Kittle. Kittle's somebody that he should probably dangle out there. He could even, give this guy Kittle and try and get that way he could get Kraft back and maybe get more picks because Kittle is a win now asset,
right.
right? He's not somebody that a rebuilding team wants. Kittle's coming off of a big season last year where he happened to stay injury free. And that's not something I want to be betting on again. That
Hmm.
Kittle's going to play almost all the games. I don't even think he missed a game last year. I don't have his numbers right up in front of me, but um, that doesn't happen often for George Kittle. So
Yeah, he was
that's one
relatively
way.
healthy last year.
What's
Yeah,
that?
he was relatively healthy last year. I know he missed a little bit here and there, but not too terribly bad for what
Right.
we've
And
gotten
that's what helped
accustomed
him
to.
finish, I think, tight end two or three behind behind Bowers.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, the team that's got 6 first round picks, what's their tight end situation like? Because that might be an interesting thought. If you can deal the 101 and Kittle, trying to get
Some of this guy's
uh,
picks, yeah.
some of his, yeah.
Let's go back up to Ron Burgundy here. Burgundy, yeah, he could use, if he's looking to contend now
Huh.
with all these picks, definitely could use George Kittle, because Ben Sinnott and
Yeah.
Jatavian Sanders, as decent, I mean, they look, Sinnott did really nothing last year, and Sanders did a little something. But if he's going to
Mhm.
contend, he needs somebody, yeah, like Kittle. So that could be something he works into the 101 and Kittle, where Hergott gets back, maybe JT Sanders, right? Or Sinnott, either one. Um,
Mhm.
and then he
And then pick up
gets,
the 105 in a future.
right, he gets this guy to give him the 105, and this guy's 26 first.
I don't
And
know if
then
I want his
he
26 first, but
and then
based on
he
what I see his
throws in,
roster at and all the picks he's got. Um, because I mean, this dude could sit there on draft day and just start selling picks, man, and then stack his
right,
roster. I mean, he's got the baseline to keep he's got a young skeleton here. So if he started selling picks, this he could get really dangerous really fast. And Hergott could start him off, offer him
yeah,
Kittle in the 101 and try to pluck more stuff from him.
right. He
I
could
mean, he
try
could
and
ask
go.
for two
I would
this
really
year.
go after Rasheed Rice here on this guy's squad, because if this guy wants to compete right away, Rasheed Rice isn't necessarily ready right away at the beginning of the season, for
True.
one. He
Yeah.
could be, he's supposed to be, but at the same time, as soon as he is ready, the league's going to drop a suspension on him. We don't know how long that is, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying, Rasheed Rice is a asset that's going to move up in value, in my opinion,
Yeah.
from where he's at right now. I see Rasheed Rice as a top 10 wide receiver when healthy. And so so that would be one guy I would go after. The one, give him the 101 and Kittle, and go after Rasheed Rice, his 105 and 26 first. That's what
That
I'd say.
I could get down with that. I
Yeah,
could totally get down with that because you're still getting your
yeah.
two firsts, and you're just replacing one value with another. But you know you're out this year, so that's a good thing. So uh, no, that's
And
a
have him
great play.
throw in Ben Sinnott or JT Sanders too.
Yeah, might as well. It's the 101, man, and that'll give this dude the 101 and the 102. That should be an easy sell. You're taking the top two picks, and then you've got 6, 7, 8, 9.
Plus, you
That's
have
a
to
good
look at,
deal.
like, within every league, there's obvious guys who like to trade more and guys who don't trade as much, right? Those
Hmm.
other two guys, Pats for Life and Dodger Town, they really didn't make any trades with their draft picks. This guy here
He's
wants
moving.
to deal. He had to have made. I mean, look at that. He traded for 5 first rounders,
Yeah,
right?
he drafted a lot of rookies last year. A lot.
Right.
Yep.
So he's willing to wheel and deal is the point, and so this is the guy who would be most. I think who would have the most opportunity to actually trade with. So
Hmm.
that's what I'd be looking at from Hergott's perspective. Go from there with
Yeah.
those guys, and then yeah, maybe grab a couple running backs in this draft. Um, one of the tight
Yeah.
ends in the second or third round, because there's decent tight ends there as well. You don't have to necessarily get Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland. I mean, between Mason Taylor, Fannin, and Arroyo, those are three good tight ends. Terrence Ferguson out there, so that's what I would try and do. with Hergott's team. We'll bring his squad back up here on the board. There we go.
Yeah.
What do you think about? So, what do you think about his quarterback situation? So he's got Anthony Richardson, of course, which is pretty polarizing right now. We know they just brought in Daniel Jones. Not something he needs to do. Hergott doesn't need to address that right now. He doesn't have to go after Daniel Jones because he's not contending. Um, that said, though, is Anthony Richardson somebody to just sit on and hopefully he pops and he can flip him for more?
Man, that's a tough one, dude. Because I mean, as you know, I'm looking at a deal in another league that involves Anthony Richardson. I was very high on Anthony for a couple of years, but with a limited sample size, unless there's mass improvement from year 2 to 3, it's a tough asset to own because no one really wants to buy him right now, not without comparable compensation to take on the risk. Um, but then if no one's going to buy him, I got to kind of hold him. I can't drop him either because as soon as he's dropped, someone's going to pick him up. It's a
Right.
weird asset to own. So you almost have to ride him out and hope that he pops for 4 or 5 games. I would imagine before he's resellable. Like he's going to have to show it for several games, and there's going to have to be hype of he's improved this, that, and the other coming into the season. So that's something I think you just got to grit your teeth and hold unless you can find a partner for that. I mean, look, his floor is pretty. We know what his floor is. His legs are going to give him a decent floor. The problem I think we have with AR is he going to get on the field? Is he going to stay on the field? Whether it's injury or poor play that keeps him off. So, but the good news is when you look at the draft picks we have, we're talking about splitting the 101. We're not talking about messing with any of the other draft picks. So you could conceivably see the 112, the 201, or even the 301 being a quarterback pick for him. Maybe it's someone who plays and hits this year. Maybe it's someone that is more like a Michael Penix that starts to flash at the end of the year and you're high on going into year 2. Let's think about Jackson Dart.
Right.
I'm pretty
I
sure
was
you
just
can be
gonna
able to
say
grab
that.
Jackson
Yeah.
Dart at the 112 or the 201 if you want to, right? So
Yep,
I
for
mean,
sure.
Shador Sanders could slip that far with the running backs and the
In
tight end
this league,
situation in
yeah.
this league. Yeah, you can totally fire a quarterback. The other thing to think about too is next year is supposed to be a better quarterback draft because of the idea of potentially Arch Manning coming out, right? So we've got a
Right.
big name, and so now the expectation is quarterbacks will be one of the higher talent grabs in next year's draft. So, and he's got 4 first-round picks next year. So he's in a good spot for the quarterback. So I wouldn't panic too much. I wouldn't try to force trade any of them. Um,
Now, what do you think about Caleb here? So he has Caleb Williams, the dude with the 6 first rounders. He does have Roma Dunze, so I was just looking at that and thinking of that being potential. If he doesn't want to get rid of Rasheed Rice, he could go for Rome then too. Um,
Correct, because they're right around the same value as well.
yeah, they're right at the same value. Maybe the guy leans one way or the other, and then he just grabs the other guy. Um,
Correct.
because I mean, I like Rice better just because I've seen it, but I'm not saying
Yeah.
Rome doesn't have the potential to
Right.
pop either to still, be a top 15 wide receiver in the league. Um,
Yes.
Especially because we
Yeah.
don't really know what Ben Johnson's gonna draw up here with that Bears offense, whether it's gonna lean towards DJ Moore as the Amon Ra St. Brown in that offense, or it's gonna be Roma Dunze, or they're just gonna be a different offense than the Lions were. I mean, the Lions had it set where they were, Amon Ra over the middle, JMO flying deep, and Laporta catching a bunch. I don't know that Komet can do as much as Laporta, and I think DJ Moore could load up on targets similar to what Amon Ra did, but I think Rome is actually built more for that role. Rome's a little bigger of a wide receiver actually than DJ Moore, I think. So um,
Well, let's think
we'll
about
see.
this too. Think about the offensive schematics because of who was throwing the football, right? Jared Goff is a statue. He is not extending plays. I need
Yeah,
this. That I'm running the play, right? Whereas
yeah,
Caleb Williams got some wheels, he's got some athleticism, and he's younger. He can do some pretty good things. I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan, but he can do some good stuff. And so I think with that more unique skill set, I think you're going to see
well,
a little
and
bit
the
more
Bears.
creativity from Ben Johnson, which opens up more types of passes and routes that can be run and executed with a quarterback that's a little bit more mobile and can handle a little bit more improv, right? So
Right.
I'm really curious to see what he is going to do in Chicago. Really curious because they've got skill players, they've got the quote unquote quarterback. So I'm curious to see what it's going to look like as we get into training camp post draft.
Yeah, and the Bears. I don't know if you watched, but in free agency, the Lions had a really good offensive line, right? And the Bears, that was
Mm-hmm.
their whole focus. They grabbed 3 offensive linemen in free agency. They
Making a
that
move.
was their number one priority. You could tell from what
Yep.
their actions have been so far is to make sure that that line was as good as they could possibly make it, at least through free agency. Now they also pick 10, I believe it is, but by what they did in free agency, they don't necessarily have to waste that pick on a lineman now. So that
Right.
opens the door to other picks. You know, some people even thought Ash and Genty could go there. That would be interesting. I don't know. But like I said, the Bears did one thing, and that was focus on offensive line, and that's only going to help Caleb Williams, even if he's. I mean, this
Yes.
year, going into his second year, he's probably going to be a little more relaxed rather than taking off and running, or trying to get outside the pocket. So we'll see. I, I I can't say that they're going backwards. Put it that way. The Bears, I can't see going backwards from last year. So they're going in the right direction at least. Um,
Yeah.
now let's bring up
I'll
the.
tell you that. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in looking at this roster, and the more I'm thinking about the free agents agency process that is still currently going on, um, where he's sitting here in the draft, 2/3, if he splits that 101, man, I think he's going to be in really good shape to address some needs. He'll be able to address every need he has if he can split that 101 and get an extra pick first next year and get some sauce on top. Um, I think I think he's in a really good position here to draft things that he needs that are going to be effective if it's done right. You know, you can get yourself a top running back. You can still get yourself a good quarterback in this draft. You can probably grow a good receiver and tight end still with the picks he's got. So it's not like it's out of the realm. You just those first few picks are going to be spent on needs, right?
Yeah.
But you should have some good receivers fall back in this one based on the way um, the point system and roster alignment is set up here.
Okay. Now I'm going to bring up something I probably should have brought up right at the beginning, but that's the war tool for this league. And this is where you'll see just the importance of the running backs illustrated. Now, there's the war chart on the left. You can see that
Yep.
that pink red line, that's the run that's the running back position. That is insane.
Yeah, not something we see a lot of in most of our leagues, but
No, you do not see that. I mean, from running back, even at the top, the the top running back last year was Saquon, and then You go down to Bijan at 2. He was the third player overall. Um, Henry, the
Yeah.
fourth player overall. You had Lamar Jackson in the middle there. And of course, that's because Lamar runs the ball. That was one thing I was going to bring up with
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson. In this format, he's getting half a point for every rush attempt that he does. Um, but
Mm,
you go down James Conner, okay? James Conner in this league was as valuable as Baker Mayfield and Joe Burrow.
that's so gross. That's so gross. That's so
Right?
gross.
So that
Uh,
that's what I was when I let off saying that he didn't have to, you know, going out and trading, and you brought this up too. Going out and trading for running backs is not the way to do it. He should be drafting them because you go way down here and look, you've got Tony Pollard, David Montgomery. The you're starting get into the gross area of running backs here, and they're equal to
yeah,
the top tight ends. The top wide receiver, Jamar Chase, was only a
I know.
1.5 WAR. James Cook, Aaron Jones, they were equal to Jamar Chase
I
in
know.
this league.
That's nutso. That's nutso. It's gross.
Justin Jefferson at a 1.09 WAR was equal. J.K. Dobbins beat out Justin Jefferson.
That's okay.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson basically equal to Ramondre Stevenson.
Unreal.
But that's the point. Like you can have a bunch of these gross running backs, and they'll get the job done for you. All the way down to Brian Robinson here at 0.93. They were all getting the job done.
Kareem Hunt. Rico Dowdle.
So it's a wild format, really, when you look at it from that perspective. And yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty
so
crazy.
yeah, he
To
he
me,
should be going
when
after
you
the
put it in this
103,
realm
104,
into
and
what's
105
important,
picks. What was that, Matt?
I was just saying when you put it like on the actual dot and line graphs, it's or charts, it's um, it's disgustingly breathtaking. Oh my gosh.
It really is. I mean, and then it's got the chart all down here showing, and it's just littered with running backs. It's running back after running back. You don't even there's not even a wide receiver that sniffs this area.
Yeah.
And the quarterbacks are all the quarterbacks that run the ball. Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, top 3. Um, I'm sure Jalen Hurts isn't far behind there. Um, he missed a couple of games, so that's possibly why he isn't quite as high. But yeah, there's Jalen Hurts. Burrow still made it up there, right behind Hurts, but he had to throw a ton to get there. Um, but yeah, there's Jamar Chase finally sandwiched in between Aaron Jones and James Cook.
Yeah. That's so bizarre. But hey, that's the point setup, man. You got to operate within the point setup that your league dictates. And
Absolutely.
in this case,
Right.
I would say you need to start drafting running backs, running backs, running backs,
Yeah.
and
Because that's
quarterbacks
the
that run.
cheapest. That's the cheapest they're ever going to be. I know we say it all the time in most of our super flex leagues, but quarterbacks, the cheapest you're ever going to get them is in the startup drafts, right? Because once you have to start trading for them afterwards, the price always goes up, right? I mean, look
Yes,
at
indeed.
right now we're If you own Sam Darnold, you are pushing for a late first for him. If you own Justin Fields, you're pushing for a late first for him. Um, I mean, it's just the way it is because there's only so many of them, right?
Hmm.
There's only 32 starting quarterbacks. And once Aaron Rodgers signs somewhere, you're gonna, even with his age, you're gonna be able to get a second for him. You know, um,
Yep.
so in this league,
Great.
it's that's where the running backs are at. Even those gross
Where,
ones like Kareem
real quick,
Hunt.
where do you think Rodgers will end up?
Where do I think he will end up? I think it's leaning Pittsburgh right now. That would be what I would, if I had to put money on it, I would put it on Pittsburgh right now
Okay.
because I think that Russ Russ visited Cleveland as well as the Giants yesterday.
Yeah.
So, or he visited the Giants yesterday, and maybe it's Cleveland, or he was in Cleveland and he's going to the Giants today. But yeah, just because I thought it was basically going to be Russ or Rodgers in Pittsburgh or the Giants, but now Cleveland kind of opened the door too to Russell Wilson. I don't see Rodgers going to Cleveland, but um, I mean, I guess it's still possible. I just saw that Mason Rudolph did resign in
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh,
Yep.
uh, but that's probably not to be the starter.
I would imagine not. It wasn't starter money. Was it like 2 years, 8 million,
No,
something like that, or one? What
but
was
it
it?
could be. He could be the bridge quarterback if they don't get Rodgers and they don't want to bring Russ back. He could be the bridge quarterback for Jackson Dart
Yeah.
potentially. The
Yeah.
Steelers do pick at 21, so that is possibly a spot where Dart is available. We don't know. I mean, if picks 1 and 2 go quarterback, then the quarterbacks could be getting moved up the boards again.
I,
But I don't know. I really like Abdul Carter, and then you got Travis Hunter there. Those are two really good. Assuming Travis Hunter's a defensive player, those are two really good defensive players there
yeah.
in the top five. I don't know. It's tough to say unless we know what way Tennessee is going.
They got to trade out.
You think Tennessee's going to trade out?
I would. They got so
Yeah.
many things to address. They could get a haul for the 101. So, I mean, it's not a quarterback year, so it's not as big, but there's some teams that probably feel they're one number one draft pick away from truly competing. So, just a matter of finding the right deal.
Yeah. Oh, I think Tennessee, if they're unable to trade back, I think they're going Abdul Carter. If I was them, that's what I would do. They need help everywhere, right? But if there's one position where they have a little bit of something, it's defensive line. And then if they add an Abdul Carter to it, that actually makes that a strength for them to where they're like a potentially top 10 unit in the league, right? And you build
Mhm.
up your defensive line, that helps all of the rest of your defense. You can't build up a strong secondary and have that as your strongest point in your defense and then expect your shitty defensive line and linebackers to be able to get things done. It doesn't work from the back to the front, but you can build up your front four real strong. That can help you just fill in the pieces at the other positions. You can stick whoever in there at middle linebacker to be a tackle machine if the D line is creating those gaps for them to hit. So it's I think that's the route they go if they're not able to trade back. I mean, I agree with you. They need help everywhere, so the best route is probably to trade back. And in this draft, the D line is very strong, so they don't necessarily have to get an Abdul Carter. But I don't know. Like I said, if they got to stick at number one, I think they should go Abdul Carter. That's just my thought. I don't think Cam Ward's going to come in there and take them to the promised land. That doesn't seem like. I mean, Washington last year had some talent elsewhere that that helped. There was, you had Dan Quinn and a big defensive mind come in, and he brought his guy in there, Bobby Wagner, to help sort of quarterback the whole defense, right? So that was a real key for their defensive side of the ball. I don't know that Tennessee has something like that right now. They've got an offensive mind as the head coach, so I mean, I can understand him wanting to go out and get his quarterback, but I don't know. I think, yeah, it would be best for them to trade back, yes, but otherwise, I'd like Abdul Carter for them.
Fair call. I think Cam
All
Ward's
right,
going into New York, so that's what I think. Cam Ward will
all
go to
right.
New
Well,
York.
Matt, do you have any last tidbits to give Hergott here with this squad?
Yeah, his contender tier is trust the process, and that's what I will say. Trust the process. It's going to be a slow. It's going to be a slow 25 because you're already throwing in the towel right now. Um, in a sense, like I'm not competing this year. But that's okay. You can make so many moves based on current draft capital and with current talent to continue to sink your score to ensure a great draft pick next year, and you have other first round picks next year. Uh, and there's young talent. I think the roster it's positioned fine. Split that 101 and then start taking the pieces that you need to fill this year.
Yeah, I agree. All right. And as far as waiting to trade that 101, I don't think he needs to do that. He doesn't have to wait till draft day, not in this league in particular, because he's got one dude that's got six of the picks. Okay. So in other leagues where you've got 9 or 10 guys have the first round picks, that's where you kind of want to create this sense of urgency. I'm pretty sure that this dude Ron Burgundy knows what he's doing and has been studying this draft pretty well up until this point. If he's going to trade it to Pats for Life or Dodger Town, then maybe he's got to wait till draft day. But I think he can go after these guys right away and try and get things moving in the
Agreed.
right direction and get these first round picks moving a little if he wants to do that. So there you go, Hergott. Of course, ask us any questions. You can shoot me. I mean, I'm in a bunch of leagues with Hergott. We talk pretty frequently, so you can ask me any other questions on this league anytime. And for those of you out there wondering how he got this opportunity, he joined the Patreon, our patreon.com/birdhouse dynasty show. It's just $3 a month. You get our rookie rankings, dynasty rankings. I throw in other tidbits. I had a review of the touchdowns per game based on offensive coordinators from last year and then going forward. That was a little, not an article, but more of a graph showing that and to what you could potentially expect from teams with new offensive coordinators. But yeah, we've got another roster review to do. So this was fun, Matt. I enjoyed it. And we're going to get going onto that. But I want to remind you all to never stop working. There we go. All right.